Everyone has a favorite zodiac sign, but there's one sign people secretly admire, copy, envy, and criticize all at the same time, and that sign is Gemini. You might not hear everyone admit it out loud. In fact, most people won't. But deep down, when you strip away stereotypes, jokes, and misunderstandings, one truth remains. Gemini is the best zodiac sign, and everyone knows it. Not because Gemini is perfect, not because Gemini is easy to understand, but because Gemini operates on a level most signs never reach. This is the sign ruled by the mind, the sign that sees life from multiple angles at once, the sign that adapts, evolves, learns, and outgrows situations faster than anyone else. And that's exactly why Gemini stands above the rest. From the outside, people love to label Gemini as too much, too talkative, too curious, too changeable, too unpredictable. But what they really mean is this: Gemini moves faster than they do, mentally, emotionally, energetically. Gemini doesn't stay stuck. They don't cling to outdated versions of themselves. They don't fear growth. They crave it. And in a world where most people are terrified of change, that alone already makes Gemini rare. What makes Gemini the best zodiac sign isn't loud confidence or a need to dominate. It's something much deeper. It's intelligence that goes beyond facts. It's emotional awareness mixed with logic. It's the ability to understand people without becoming trapped by them. Gemini doesn't just live life. They observe it, question it, analyze it, and reinterpret it constantly. That's power. One of the biggest reasons Gemini is unmatched is their mental flexibility. While other signs see one truth, Gemini sees 10. While others follow a single narrative, Gemini questions it. While most people accept life as it is, Gemini asks, but what if it could be different? This is why Gemini is always ahead of trends, conversations, and ideas. They don't wait for permission to think differently. Their mind is always moving, not because they're lost, but because they're exploring. People mistake Gemini's curiosity for instability, but curiosity is not confusion. It's intelligence refusing to stay small. Gemini learns faster than most signs because they're not emotionally attached to being right. They're attached to discovering what's true. That alone puts them leagues ahead. Another reason Gemini is the best zodiac sign is their social intelligence. Gemini understands people instinctively. They read tone, energy, pauses, and unspoken emotions with frightening accuracy. They know how to talk to anyone, not in a fake way, but in a way that makes others feel seen. This is why Gemini can walk into any environment and adapt instantly. Different room, different energy, different personalities. Gemini adjusts without losing themselves. This isn't manipulation, it's mastery of communication. And communication is one of the most powerful skills a human can possess. Gemini knows how to translate thoughts into words, feelings into language, complex ideas into something simple and relatable. That's why Gemini dominates conversations, storytelling, creativity, media, and ideas. They don't just speak, they connect, and connection is influence. People often underestimate how emotionally deep Gemini actually is. Because Gemini doesn't drown in emotions, they analyze them, they feel deeply, but they don't let emotions control their entire identity. Instead of becoming consumed, Gemini asks, why do I feel this way? What triggered this? What does this emotion teach me? This emotional intelligence is rare. While other signs get stuck repeating emotional patterns, Gemini learns from them and evolves. That's why Gemini doesn't stay broken for long. They adapt, they grow, they move forward. And this ability to evolve is exactly what makes Gemini dangerous, in the best way. Gemini doesn't fear endings. They understand that endings create new beginnings. They don't cling to what no longer aligns. They release, reset, and reinvent again and again. That's not inconsistency, that's survival intelligence. Gemini also carries one of the strongest gifts of all, perspective. They can stand in someone else's shoes without losing their own identity. They can understand opposing viewpoints without feeling threatened. This is why Gemini often feels misunderstood. When you can see all sides, people who see only one feel uncomfortable around you. Gemini exposes narrow thinking simply by existing, and people don't always like being reminded of what they lack. This is also why Gemini often outgrows people, environments, and even dreams faster than others. They evolve mentally long before the world around them catches up, and that can feel lonely. But loneliness doesn't mean weakness, it means you're ahead. Gemini's duality isn't a flaw, it's a superpower. They can be serious and playful, deep and light, logical and emotional, quiet and expressive. This balance allows Gemini to navigate life with flexibility instead of rigidity. While others break under pressure, Gemini bends and survives. This is why Gemini thrives in chaos. When things change suddenly, Gemini doesn't panic, they adapt. When plans collapse, Gemini improvises. When life shifts direction, Gemini adjusts their sails. This adaptability is priceless in a world that never stops changing. And deep down, people know this. They may criticize Gemini, they may joke about them, they may try to box them into stereotypes, but when things fall apart, when answers are needed, when clarity is required, people look to Gemini, because Gemini sees what others miss, and this is only the beginning. There's a reason Gemini attracts admiration and criticism in equal measure. It's the same reason people whisper about them when they leave the room. Gemini triggers something in others, not intentionally, but inevitably. Because Gemini represents freedom of mind, and most people live trapped inside their own limitations. When people call Gemini too much, what they really mean is, you're reminding me of what I'm not brave enough to be. Gemini thinks freely, speaks honestly, questions deeply, and that level of mental independence is threatening. Many signs follow rules without realizing it. Social rules, emotional rules, unspoken expectations about how life should be lived. Gemini sees those rules and immediately asks why they exist, not to rebel for the sake of rebellion, but because blind obedience has never made sense to them. Gemini's mind doesn't accept ideas just because they're popular. They analyze them, dissect them, test them against logic, experience, and intuition. This is why Gemini often sees the truth long before others do. They notice patterns early, they connect dots quickly, they sense shifts in energy, people, and situations before they fully unfold. And people don't like that, because when someone sees clearly, excuses disappear. Gemini also has something many signs secretly envy: emotional detachment with empathy. Gemini can care deeply without losing themselves. They can love without becoming emotionally dependent. They can support others without sacrificing their own growth. This doesn't mean Gemini is cold. It means Gemini values mental and emotional autonomy. They understand a powerful truth: you can't save others if you abandon yourself. This is why Gemini refuses to stay in situations that drain them mentally. Toxic conversations, stagnant relationships, limiting environments. They leave not because they don't care, but because they care about growth. And growth is Gemini's natural direction. People often misinterpret this as selfishness, but in reality it's self-respect. Gemini knows that staying stuck to make others comfortable is the fastest way to lose yourself, and Gemini will never choose comfort over evolution. Another reason Gemini stands above the rest is their creative intelligence. Their mind doesn't work in straight lines. It jumps, connects, associates ideas in ways others wouldn't even consider. This is why Gemini excels in storytelling, art, writing, music, media, humor, and innovation. They don't just repeat ideas, they remix them. Gemini has the rare ability to take something complex and make it engaging, to take something heavy and make it light, to take something ordinary and make it fascinating. That's charisma, that's mental magnetism. And this mental magnetism makes Gemini unforgettable. people remember how Gemini made them think, how they made them laugh, how they made them see things differently. Even after Gemini is gone, their words echo. Another uncomfortable truth is this: other signs often try to imitate Gemini. They copy Gemini's humor, their way of speaking, their confidence in changing direction, their ability to reinvent themselves, but imitation only works on the surface, because Gemini's strength doesn't come from aesthetics or personality tricks. It comes from genuine mental freedom. You can't fake that. Gemini is constantly learning, absorbing information, evolving their worldview. They're not attached to one version of themselves, and this is why Gemini never truly falls behind. Even when they fail, they learn faster than most people succeed. Failure doesn't define Gemini, stagnation does, and they avoid it at all costs. This is also why Gemini often has multiple phases in life, different careers, different interests, different passions. To some, this looks unstable. But in reality, it's mastery through exploration. Gemini doesn't want a narrow life. They want a full one. They want experiences, conversations, ideas, contradictions. They want to understand life from every angle. And this hunger for understanding makes Gemini wise beyond their years. Gemini also has an exceptional ability to detach from ego. They don't need to always be right. They don't fear changing their mind. They don't cling to outdated beliefs just to protect their pride. If new information appears, Gemini adjusts. That's not weakness, that's intelligence. This flexibility allows Gemini to grow faster than signs who are emotionally attached to being consistent. Gemini understands something most people don't. Consistency without growth is just repetition. And Gemini was never meant to repeat the same cycle endlessly. This is why Gemini often becomes a mirror for others. Around Gemini, people start questioning themselves, their choices, their beliefs, their limitations, not because Gemini judges, but because Gemini reflects truth, and truth makes people uncomfortable. Some will admire Gemini for it, others will resent them, but either way, Gemini leaves an impact. Even in love, Gemini operates differently. They don't want possession, they want connection. They don't want control. They want understanding. They don't want routine. They want stimulation. When Gemini loves, they love with their mind as much as their heart. They want conversations that never get boring, ideas that evolve together, a partner who grows instead of clings. And this is why Gemini raises the standard in relationships. Not everyone can keep up. But those who do experience something rare, a bond built on freedom, curiosity, and mutual respect. Gemini doesn't trap people. They invite them to expand. And expansion is intimidating for those who prefer safety. At their core, Gemini represents movement, mental movement, emotional movement, spiritual movement. They refuse to freeze in time. And this is why Gemini always feels slightly ahead of the world, not because they're better, but because they move faster. And deep down, everyone sees it. They might not admit it. They might joke about it. They might criticize it, but they feel it. Gemini's presence reminds people of possibilities they ignored, and that's powerful. In the long run, Gemini always wins. Not in the loud, obvious way people expect. Not through dominance, control, or force. Gemini wins because they understand life. They understand that nothing stays the same, that identities evolve, that minds expand, that people grow or get left behind. While others cling to who they used to be, Gemini becomes who they need to be next. This is why Gemini rarely peaks early. Their success isn't rushed. It's layered. Every experience adds another level of awareness. Every mistake sharpens their perception. Every ending creates a more evolved beginning. Gemini doesn't fear being alone because they know solitude fuels clarity. They don't fear change because change is their natural environment. They don't fear uncertainty because curiosity replaces anxiety. This inner confidence is quiet but unshakable. When life becomes unpredictable, most people freeze. Gemini moves. They adjust their mindset. They adapt their strategy. They explore new paths. And eventually, they find solutions others never considered. This is why Gemini often becomes the thinker, the connector, the messenger. They translate chaos into meaning, confusion into insight, silence into conversation, and in a world overwhelmed by noise, that ability is priceless. Gemini also carries an unusual emotional strength. They don't let past pain define their future. They don't romanticize suffering. They don't live in emotional nostalgia. They extract lessons and move forward. This doesn't mean Gemini doesn't feel deeply. It means they refuse to let pain trap them. They understand something powerful. Healing isn't about reliving wounds, it's about learning from them. That mindset alone places Gemini ahead of many signs who stay emotionally stuck. Another reason Gemini is the best zodiac sign is their relationship with identity. They don't need labels to feel secure. They don't panic when they outgrow old versions of themselves. They don't fear reinvention. In fact, they expect it. Gemini understands that identity is fluid, not fixed, and this flexibility gives them freedom most people never experience. They can walk away from what no longer aligns without guilt. They can choose growth even when it's uncomfortable. They can redefine success on their own terms. That's not instability, that's self-mastery. Gemini also has an unmatched ability to influence the world subtly. They don't force ideas, they introduce them. They plant seeds in conversations. They challenge perspectives gently. They inspire change without demanding it. And over time, people realize their thinking has shifted. That's Gemini's impact. They change minds quietly. This is why Gemini energy is everywhere. In media, communication, innovation, storytelling, and cultural shifts. They don't just follow the world. They shape how the world thinks. Even when Gemini struggles, their mind never stops searching for meaning. They question their purpose, they reflect on their direction, they analyze their inner world, and this self-awareness prevents stagnation. Gemini doesn't stay lost for long. They might wander, they might explore, they might change direction, but every detour teaches them something valuable, and eventually all those experiences connect. Gemini's life may look chaotic from the outside, but internally, it's a web of understanding. Every conversation, every heartbreak, every curiosity, nothing is wasted. This is why Gemini often becomes wiser with time, not rigid, not bitter, not closed off, but open, sharp, and deeply perceptive. At their best, Gemini represents the highest expression of human intelligence, not just IQ, but emotional, social, and intuitive intelligence. They understand people, they understand systems, they understand themselves, and that understanding gives them power. Not power over others, but power over their own life. That's the real victory. So when people ask why Gemini is the best zodiac sign, the answer isn't arrogance, it's awareness. Gemini isn't the best because they try to be. They're the best because they evolve. They adapt, they question, they learn, they move. And in a world that's constantly changing, the ones who move forward always survive. Deep down, everyone knows this. They might not say it out loud. They might pretend they don't see it, but they feel it. Gemini operates on a different frequency. And that's why they're unforgettable. That's why they're misunderstood. And that's why they're the best. If you're a Gemini and this resonated with you, make sure to like this video. It helps the channel more than you know. Comment below and tell me, what part of being a Gemini do you relate to the most? And if you want more deep psychological content about zodiac signs, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next.